Oh, let's see here. What have we got going on? I can get some little earpieces in. Get some stuff kind of going so I can hear myself and I can hear music as well. John saying, you hear the music? That's what we like. It should be kind of low, but it's there. The only thing I got to do is I need to remember to license that music. Where is it? Way too many things that I've licensed. I know it's here. I know it's here. It's here somewhere. There it is. Relicense. Digital Ministry Show Episode 7. This will be a live stream. I don't know if I've got the settings set for after the intro plays. I think so. I think I got everything where it's supposed to be. The good thing about Ecamm is once I've set it, it saves whatever alteration that I've made automatically. So it should be all right, in theory. Now, the only other thing is I wonder, do I have... I don't. I was wondering if I had OneNote over on my Mac, but I don't. Which I suppose is just fine. How did I get this little preview window? No clue. None whatsoever. All right. Phone muted. Message from A Bite of Brownie. Supposed to mute. I'll get to that one later. Unless he happens to, like, hop in on the live stream. And then I guess we'll get to it then. Alright, close Soundstripe. I think I might have cut that song off a little early, but that's quite all right. I'm just going to double check some of the socials that I didn't get to ahead of time because apparently I did mess up my countdown and didn't give myself 5 minutes like I thought I did. But want to make sure that I am live and streaming if you guys are out there on whatever platform you are, whether it be, I think I'm on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, obviously. I think that might be it. Anyways, if I'm there and you guys are there, then let me know, hey, what is up? And yeah, we'll do things and stuff. Dean Landini saying, howdy. Howdy, Dean. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, and John saying, nope, the countdown ended. It did end. What is up with this one earpiece, this one little one? I think this one's good. This one, not so good. But we will get through that. And the only other thing I need to double check is, are we live over on the Books of Faces? And it does not want to pull up for me. Slow. Hey, it looks like we are actually on there. So I will just share this over to my page as a post. And then we're good. And we're ready to go. And I think what we will do is we will do like we did last week, where we'll probably jump into like a just straight into the podcast in this podcast recording. And then afterwards, we'll be able to hit with the Q&A. So if you guys have got any Q's, hopefully I have the A's, and you can drop them into the chat and hear, hopefully, this little podcast recording, the little monologue that I'll give you on today's topic of the difference between digital ministry and digital marketing. Hopefully that doesn't last more than, say, 15 minutes. Last week I wound up hitting about the 18-minute mark. Hopefully it's quicker than that, because I kind of felt like these are little shorter thoughts that would kind of help in the digital ministry realm, and if I could keep them short, that would be pretty good. So, Dennis, good to see you. Glad you're here as well. All right, what do you think? I'll roll this quick little intro, and then we will just jump straight in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Digital Ministry Show. My name is Joshua Verwers, and I am your host. And today we're going to be looking at the difference between digital ministry versus digital marketing. Is there a difference? What is the difference? Does it really matter? Yes, it does matter. At least in my humble opinion, I do believe that it matters to find the difference between digital marketing and digital ministry. And I know that sometimes we get into some of these topics, these discussions, and what really winds up happening is nothing more than us just getting into like semantics. We get into some of the definitions of the words, and one person might use a word for this type of a definition. I might use a separate word for the same definition. But if we focus on the words rather than the definitions, that's where we can start to squabble and fight and argue, and it doesn't do anything for building the kingdom and creating unity and harmony. So what I want to be able to do is actually give you some of the definitions as I see them between what I would consider digital ministry and what I would consider digital marketing. And I think if we can kind of clarify at least the definition from where I come from and where I stand, I think that's going to help us try to get onto the same page and then look at which one, or do we want both of them? Which one should we be using? Should we be using both of them? What is the use case for our particular church or ministry? And is there a way that we can use this to really help fulfill the call that God has placed on our lives in this realm? So that's what I kind of want to do. I want to jump into that. And also just a little heads up for those of you that are listening to this audio podcast on your favorite platform. If you're enjoying this, make sure that you leave me some feedback. Let me know that you love it. Share it with somebody else. And keep in mind, Mondays at noon over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Joshua Verwers, we are doing a live stream recording of this. And after the recording of the podcast, we open it up for Q&A. So if you've got any questions, any comments, you leave them there. And as soon as we get through with the recording, well, I do my best to try to answer those. All right, so let's get back to the topic at hand, digital ministry and digital marketing. And what is the difference, and is there a difference? So, for me and my perspective, I'm going to give you kind of like the simplest definitions of digital ministry and digital marketing that I can come up with. Digital ministry is all about connecting people to Jesus. Digital marketing is all about connecting people to our ministry. And so that in itself is something that we need to think about, that type of a definition. Think about, are we trying to connect people to Jesus or connect people to our church? Now, ideally, connecting them to our church then becomes connecting them to Jesus, but there's an extra step and an extra layer in there. And I think understanding that definition and the little nuances of this will really help us to identify ultimately the people that we're trying to reach on the platforms we're trying to reach and what the end goal of reaching them is. Are we just trying to, in digital ministry, reach them exactly where they're at? And by reaching them where they're at, essentially just say, hey, you're here, we're connecting you to Jesus, we're trying to help you encourage and live your faith out, and where you're at is fine for us? Or are we trying to connect them into our church or a local church and say, hey, we want you to go even farther and even deeper, and then we'll get you connected to Jesus, and then we're going to continue with you. And there's kind of two different paths in doing that. And I want you to make sure that you understand that I'm not saying that either one is better than the other. I think they both have their place and they both become necessary. But I think if we don't understand the definition and what God is really calling us to specifically, we can apply the wrong concepts from one to the other, because the way of doing digital ministry is not necessarily the same way of doing digital marketing. And so that's something I think we need to connect. Like for me, when I think about just ministry in and of itself, ministry is all about serving. That's what it is. To minister to somebody, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to serve them. You're trying to kind of meet them where they're at and meet that need. And so when I think about digital ministry, you're trying to serve them in the digital sphere. You're trying to help them in that. Marketing in and of itself is really meant to kind of push a sale. You're trying to sell a product or a service. And even in churches, when we do marketing and we're trying to market our church, what we're trying to say is, hey, our church is a place that you can come and get something, so we want you to connect to that. But we're wanting them to connect to that because there's a bigger mission that eventually does help them connect to Jesus and build the kingdom. But again, it's that extra little step in there. So one's more about serving, where the other's more about selling. And what we're trying to sell is good. I mean, we're really trying to sell them on the concept of the gospel, of eternal life in Jesus Christ. And guess what? The cost for that is free. It's not going to cost you anything, but we're still trying to sell that. Versus like a digital ministry concept, you're just trying to serve them right where they're at. I think what we have to do is we've really got to kind of start with our own why and figure out, why are we trying to do this? And what is the mission? What is it that God is calling us to? I think when we can clarify that mission, all of a sudden it becomes very clear. If I give you digital ministry tips and God hasn't called you to a digital ministry, well, it's not going to really help you. But at the same time, if God has called you to a digital ministry and somebody is trying to give you digital marketing tips, again, it's not going to really help you. And so I think starting with our why and understanding that will really help out. Now, that being said, even with digital marketing, there is a marketing concept that, Gary Vee, one of the biggest, marketers out there, he'll talk about, and he's got a book on it. It's jab, 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 right hook. And essentially what he's telling us is to give the value, give the value, give the value, and then ask for the sale after you've given them the value. And this is something that I see a lot of churches really failing on, where they're not really giving the value as much. They're saying, hey, come to our service, come join this, come do, and it's all about come, instead of going, and instead of give. And that's where I think we need to be giving them the value first, even if it's a digital marketing concept that we're looking at, even if we're trying to get them to connect to our local church, even if we're trying to take them from an online community to an in-person community. Even if that's our goal, we still need to be providing the value. And so we need to give more than just ask for something in return. Something that is out there that I'm seeing a lot of churches and I'm seeing a lot of ministries that are struggling with, because they're not really giving that value. It's another marketing concept of giving the value prop, that value proposition, letting people know this is the value that you're going to get out of that. It's something that I do, if you're watching live, you're seeing it down in the little ticker, and you've heard me talk about this on some of my latest streams and vlogs. I've got a membership site that I'm running over at Buy Me a Coffee. And for me to actually get people to support that, I have to give them a value proposition. I have to tell them why it's beneficial to them. And when I start to tell people that you're getting some of the early access and the behind the scenes content of what it is that I'm doing with this digital ministry, how I'm encouraging people to live by faith, and you're going to get this stuff kind of raw and unpolished, sometimes weeks or even months before anybody else is going to get the access to it, all of a sudden, there's that value. People can start to see that value. Okay, well, if Josh is kind of catching and noticing this stuff and he's kind of early into it, well, I may want it when he's got it and as he's kind of processing through, versus waiting to where he's kind of processed it and then I might kind of miss some of the boat on it. That's the value prop that we need to give. If we're doing that for a church, to let them know, hey, this is why you want to connect with our church. If you're looking for this, if you're looking for this type of a content, if you're looking for this type of help, this type of a community, we're the place where you want to come. And when we can convey that and clarify that vision and that mission that God has entrusted us with, all of a sudden people will buy in a little bit more. But oftentimes, most ministers and ministries, their social media post isn't really about giving the value. We think it's about giving the value. We think that, hey, I just posted a live stream to my Sunday service and that's value. And it can be, but not if somebody's never experienced you before. If they're new and they have no idea what you have to offer, it's going to be really hard to kind of convert them into one of your community members, one of your congregation. So clarifying that vision and making sure that you can then clarify it for others. It's almost the Habakkuk 2:2 spin on it, where it says to write the vision and make it plain so those that read it can run with it. If we can't clarify our own mission and vision, how do we expect anybody else to kind of buy into it and support it? When it comes to digital ministry, I think digital ministry is going to be asking themselves some questions. These are questions that I ask myself with this digital ministry. Stuff like, how can I use digital tools to fulfill the call that God has placed on me? How can I know that God has called me to encourage people to live by faith. So how can I use digital tools to fulfill that call? How can I reach people where they're at? My church is in Sheraton, Iowa, and there are people all over the world that I know God has called me to encourage. I can't expect them all to come to our local church. So how can I use these digital tools and these digital platforms to reach them right where they're at? These are the questions that digital ministry will ask. Digital marketing will ask things like, how can we take what we're doing in person and replicate it or recreate it online? How can we have our in-person community be similar to our online community? How can we do that? It'll also ask things like, how can we then take that online community and convert them into an in-person community? Again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with these questions. I think that it's all about the mission that God has really called you to. But understanding those questions will help us adapt and adopt certain tactics that we need to be more effective in that call. These are the type of things that I think is really going to help us when it comes to the difference of digital ministry versus digital marketing. I really believe that we need to not only have a go to them mentality, but also a come to us mentality. We need to realize that there's a time and a place for both. And so what I would encourage all of you to do is really kind of examine what it is God has called you to. How has God equipped you? How has God enabled you? How has God asked you to fulfill your part in building the kingdom? What is that specific thing that he wants you to do? And do you need more of the digital ministry tactics and strategies, or do you need more of that digital marketing tactics and strategies? Or maybe, just maybe, you need both. And sometimes if you need both, you need to understand which one you need for which purpose and at which point in time. I think it all comes down to us really kind of evaluating what we're doing, having a continual check-in to say, where are we at? Where are we going? And when it comes to some of that that's come to us and some of it that's go to them, we need to realize that the go to them is going to be all about digital ministry, where the come to us is going to be all about digital marketing. Anywho, I hope you guys kind of got some ideas stirring in your head. I hope that kind of sparks some creativity for you and maybe a little bit more clarification on the direction that you need to go to be able to fulfill the call that God has placed on your life. I'd love for you to be able to connect with me, and you can do so on any of the social platforms. You can find me at Joshua Verwers, and love you guys. Love all of your support, and we will catch you in the next episode. All right, now for those of you that are still here and you are online, let's get to some of these, hopefully, questions that you might have and stuff. Let's see. Okay, so quick little shout outs here that we did have. We had John Hayes saying, what's up? Dean Lentini. Dennis Poulette was here. Pastor Mike. Howdy, good to see it. I have not caught up with you in a long time. It's been way too long. We need to connect sometime. Vaughn Sanders as well. What is up, folks? Vaughn, love you, brother. Good to see you. I'm just noticing over my right shoulder, I have one of my other LED panels, and it is just flickering. So that's Vaughn just mentioned it. Off topic. What's the blue light in the background? It is one of my LED panels. I've got the Viltrox VL200s, and that's the display on the back of it that it probably says, like, I don't know, 5,500 Kelvin, and it's off now. Like I could there flip it on for you. Is that better? Not so much. And that's even at 44%. There we go. See, there's down at 20%. That's as low as this thing goes. We'll just turn that one off. So that's the light there. Okay, what have we got? I need to move some of these overlays up and out of the way because I'm just noticing when I reshifted some things, it kind of moved a little bit. Let's move Vaughn over. Nope. We got to move Vaughn over. There. My OCD. It's my almost. OCD is almost there. Come on. Yeah, good enough. All right. Bye to Brownie saying, I missed it. What are we fighting? I like to fight. Semantics. Josh is going to fight the urge to read the comments and lose concentration. I had to do that. I actually had to minimize the restream chat window because as I was looking here and then glancing over to my notes over on my Trello board, all of a sudden it was distracting. So I was fighting that urge. Let the shenanigans begin. I almost read your comment, your DM here, because it popped up. I told him that, you had just sent me a message, but I wasn't going to reply unless you hopped in and asked it in the live stream. Is it a digital sphere or a digital cube? It depends on who you talk to. I think there are some people out there that would say it's a digital piece of paper because it's flat. We'll leave it at that. More of a digital space, or was it an arena? You guys rolling them out. All right, Dean, great point. I think that a lot of churches assume that people think they need a church when in reality, they don't know why a church is valuable to them. Yes, absolutely. And I think to even kind of build on that and roll with that a little bit is that we've also got some of our churches are different. Actually, all of our churches are different from each other. And so there's a lot of these variations that you can see. Different churches have different ministry or different missions and different callings. And because of that, there's no really two churches that are going to be the same. They'll have a lot of similar functions. But, like our church, we kind of strongly emphasize on prayer and ministering the word. And that's kind of the big things. We want to make sure that people are really equipped to be powerful in their prayer life and have that fervent, effective prayer that avails much. But we also want to have them, really strong in the word because we believe that faith comes by hearing the word. And that's what we really want them to be built up in. So we want them to have that life of faith, but it varies a little bit different because we're not as focused on, maybe some of the community stuff, or we're not as focused on maybe different aspects of, Christianity in and of itself. We're just kind of heavy in these areas. And we had to realize those are the areas that we're strong in. Those are the areas that we're kind of gifted in, and we need to press into that. And then when people come in and we can ask them, what kind of a church are you looking for? What are you needing? And then we can let them know, here's where our strengths are. Maybe that works out for you. Maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, let's recommend some other churches you might want to check out, because we don't want people to, fit into the wrong place. And I think that also comes in with, stuff in the digital ministry realm, realizing that we're not all in that same vein. Like me on my channel, if you're wanting apologetics content, go somewhere else. That's not me. Can I do it? Have I been trained in it? Sure. That's not my gifting. That's not my strength. And so I'm not going to press into it. I'm going to lean into the things that I am really gifted in, because I think where I'm leaning into my giftings, that's where God's grace is the greatest. And so that's what I kind of want to do with that. I think it's also important for others to, really kind of find that, understand, here's where my gifts are at, here's where my skill set is. So, that's again, showing that value and making sure that we understand our own value so we can convey that value to others. What do we have? Bida Brownie saying, wait, John, you messed up. You called his name Jared. It's Bida Brownie, remember? Bida Brownie says, I'm thinking traveling skit show. Now that's going to where they're at. I don't really know what to say with regards to that. Or that. You guys do realize that this is the wrong show if you're trying to give me comments to title it. I mean, I've already titled this one. Great. Yeah, Dennis saying the blue light's the Holy Spirit flickering back there. Okay. John saying, silliness aside, only a portion of the post should be promotional in nature. Most should be relational in nature. Well, and again, this can kind of go to what is the aspect. I mean, you've got different types of content that's out there. So you'll have promotional content, relational content, educational content, entertainment content, and informational content. And so I think there needs to be a pretty good spread of that. But I think a lot of times the promotional and the informational, when we're talking informational about, hey, we've got service times at this, or we're meeting here, I think those should be more of a limited thing. And that goes for even sometimes digital ministry needs to adapt some digital marketing techniques on how to really grow those platforms. And even in that, we have to be very careful about how much promotion is going out there. So it needs to have a lot of that value that we're given, whether it be educational or relational or inspirational, even entertainment. We can wind up helping and reaching people with some of that as well. So it's finding where that balance is, but I do agree that a lot less needs to be the promotional. And if we look at it from even like the Gary V jab, 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 right hook, I'm thinking like a quarter. I would prefer it be more like, I think I heard Brady Shear at one point saying it was like 1 in 7 posts should be, about your church or kind of invitational type post. Finding that balance. And again, I don't think there's a one size fits all either. I think it's going to be a little bit different on that. But John saying, that being said, I realize I fall short of that a lot. I do too. I mean, you guys heard that little episode and I plugged a little self-promotion there as well. So it is, we've got to be kind of careful on how we're doing it and what's going on and trying to find that balance. But I think ultimately starting with that why, why are we doing what we're doing? It does really help us to kind of rein in a little bit. Then even if we are doing the promotional aspect, if we understand that value prop and we can communicate that value prop in the promotion, it still does help because it's saying, hey, I want to give you value. This is how you're going to receive the value. Okay. Tomlinson Road, what's up, friends? What is up? Good to see you here as well. Mike Jumpin' Page, you went from Facebook now over to the YouTubes. Saying, I think digital ministry parallels the church website, i.e., you almost have to have 2 separate wings, one for seeker visitors and another for the regular members. Yeah, exactly. I do think that there is that approach. I know one of the churches that I saw, and this has been a while, they've been doing it. Brady Shear has kind of, with his Nucleus platform, he modified what they were doing. I'm thinking of Church on the Move down in Tulsa. And they have, I think it's, churchonthemove.com or .org, whatever it is. That's their kind of visitors and seekers website where it talks about them. But then they have, I think it's cotm.info, and that is kind of like their back end for their members, how they take next steps and how they connect and, some of that. Because a lot of the members are going to want some more of that informational type stuff where the seekers are going to want more of the inspirational type stuff. They're going to want the stuff to know where the value is at. So I do think there's definitely a little mix on there. And for, small churches and ministries, that may not have a lot of the funds and the resources to be able to run two different websites or to have a platform like, Nucleus to kind of do that back end for the members. Honestly, there's an easy way. Just have your website be kind of the billboard that's out there for the seekers and the visitors, and then you can just start like a Facebook page. If that's where the majority of your congregation's at, start a Facebook page or a Facebook group even, which might be better to try to connect them in. We do that with our church. We've got a Facebook group, and it's just locked down for our members and those that are members, regular attenders. Those are the ones that get access to that. And if they haven't been there for a while, well, then, I just remove them from the group. And that is a way to make sure that some of that internal information that we want to be shared with them really helps. Just some thoughts. Thoughts on digital ministry, especially for Easter. Yeah, so digital ministry, like Easter, when I think digital ministry, and I think we are trying to connect people to Jesus with digital ministry. So it's not even so much about come to our church and then we'll connect you. No, I think it's let's go right where they're at and try to reach them. Yeah, I think churches need to be doing digital ministry for Easter. I think that the Easter message, I think Christmas messages, those are some of the easiest times for us to share the gospel and to really reach people. So I think it should be done. I would absolutely love to see, leading up to and over Easter weekend, just the interwebs completely saturated with people just reaching out with churches, ministries, ministers saying, here, we want to bring Jesus to you right where you're at. There's still a part of coming and meeting in person that is beneficial and it is powerful. And it's necessary. And I don't think it's a either or. I think we need to kind of take in an and both mentality. There are always going to be those people that will never show up to church. They're just not going to want to come. And for us to continue to say, come. We want you here. We want you here. You need to be here. A lot of times it's going to fall on deaf ears. And I think really those hearts need to be softened up. So that's where I'm saying if we go to them and we take stuff to them, that's really going to help to soften them up. And then they'll say, okay, well, if this is the amount of value I'm getting, but it's only in this capacity, I wonder if I could get more value if I showed up in person. So I think that the digital marketing and the digital ministry can roll hand in hand. I also think that around Easter, there needs to be a lot of digital marketing. We did some digital marketing years back for Easter, and I just ran it was like a 30 or a 60-second ad on Facebook. I created a quick little video from our church. I was setting in the office. It was nothing special. I think it was the phone, no extra microphone. And I just said, hey, we're going to be holding the Easter services, this day, this time. We would love to see as many people as possible get to church on Easter weekend. However, we realize that I'm not everybody's cup of coffee. And if I'm not, I've listed down below a list of all of the area churches, and I want you to go check out one of them as well. And so we did that. I linked as many as I could in I think we did about a 30-mile radius from where our church is in Sheridan. And any of them that had a Facebook page, that's what I did because we focused on Facebook at the time. So I just added a link to their Facebook page in that post. And I heard back from several pastors that they had called me later, said, hey, I asked somebody, they showed up, it was a visitor. How did you find out about us? And they said that you ran a little ad. So it was nice to know that even though they weren't necessarily coming to my church, it was still connecting to others. So that was us looking at what can we do for digital marketing to go beyond just our local church too? How can we help the body, in general? So that's something I would say, but yeah, I definitely believe, we should be doing digital ministry for Easter. Yeah. Lots of it. So, John asking, are you still primarily online where you're at? Yep. And I was thinking you guys were doing both, the online and the offline. And like we're in person, we haven't been doing as much online. I was supposed to have an online sermon up yesterday, and last week was just way too busy. So as soon as I get done with this, I've got to get working on that, and I'll put it up a day late. Still works. So that's kind of what we're doing. I've started a Monday through Thursday vlog. Nice. I like to see that. Drop me a link if you can. Send me a message over on Facebook or whatever. Drop me a link to it. I want to check that out. So see what you got going on there. And all churches should be doing digital ministry. I feel like if they are not, they are likely on the road to death, because after COVID, digital ministry isn't going away. Amen. Like, I cannot agree anymore with that. And I've been saying that for the last couple of years, and I'm sure you've probably heard me say that. And this has been, 3, 4, or maybe about 3 years now that if a church does not get into the digital trend, they've got maybe 10 years, and then they're dead and irrelevant, because you're not going to be able to reach the next generation when that's where the next generation is at. That being said, I think that's kind of sped up a little bit because of COVID. I think a lot of people, a lot of churches, a lot of ministries out there understood the value of doing it. But at the same time, there's a lot that didn't, and there's a lot that aren't able to make it. And I know there's a lot of churches that have been closing down because they couldn't make that pivot. One of the television shows I like watching is Shark Tank. And Shark Tank, all about these entrepreneurs and these business owners that are kind of starting up and trying to really scale their business, take it to the next level, and looking for an investor to be able to do that. And it's staggering how many of them, looking and talking about their numbers through 2020, their numbers just plummeted. And you'd kind of expect that to happen when everything gets shut down, but plummeting and not really recovering because they weren't able to figure out how to pivot to taking their business online. And that's what's happened across the body of Christ in general. There are a lot of churches that they haven't figured out how to pivot, and they're on life support at this point. There's not much that they can do. And it's just a sad commentary. It's a sad reality. It's what we as the church have been doing for years and years and years. We have been hesitant and we have been resistant to change, to technology and how to use it, because we see how the world uses it and it's all for negative. And because of that, we just think that it's the platform and it's the technology itself that is the negative. And it's not that. It's just a device. It's just a tool. That's all it is. It's an inanimate object. This microphone, we can give this microphone to we're not going to, but we could take a microphone like this, take all the equipment I have and send it out to everybody. And very few of them would be able to actually use it in an effective way. A lot of them are going to be using it for negative purposes. Some aren't going to be able to use it at all. It's the tool in and of itself won't do anything. It's in the hands that it's been able to use. And so that's the thing. I think we've got all of these digital tools at our access, at our disposal. We have the ability to take the gospel, to take God's love and share it across the interwebs. And some just don't want to. So I don't know. All right. Mike saying, I think the struggle with digital ministry, however, is making sure it's high quality. And as more and more churches go digital, it'll show who doesn't value it. Yeah, there is that aspect. I think, what we're doing online, and really I think everything should kind of parallel our walk with Christ. We're not supposed to just start and then stay where we're at. We're supposed to start and then we're supposed to grow and keep building on that. And so even with the digital ministry, I think we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to grow with it. And I look back on some of my early videos and I'm like, wow, those are bad. But it didn't take too long before I really started to grow and I started to improve the quality and the technology. And I kind of go in circles where, I'll focus on the audio and then I'll jump over to like the lighting and then I'll head to some of the video and then I'll go back to the audio and then back to the lighting and back to the video. And I just keep through this circle. And even with that, then it's like, okay, well, what about the content that I'm actually bringing? Because there's a value in the content too. And I can do a vlog where I'm just, rambling about my day, or I could add a little extra value in there. And that's something I think us just kind of, again, understanding where our mission and our strengths are at, and then how can we continually improve? How can we keep building on that? So great on that. John saying, I just had the conversation on our church about not being everyone's cup of tea with a coworker. He came from a Methodist background, and our style is far from what they were used to. I get that as well. We've had, we're that charismatic Pentecostal, word of faith. Maybe not so much swinging from the chandeliers, but that's primarily because we don't have the chandeliers in there anymore. But we've got, Catholics that have come, and Presbyterians and Methodists and Lutherans, and Baptists, and we've got other, maybe Pentecostal wings that kind of come in, and not everybody fits, and some of them, they'll look and they're like, I'm not used to that. Okay. If you're not used to it and you're not willing to even kind of explore why we do what we do, well, then there's, hundreds of churches around. Just go find one and plug in. And my big thing is, I just want people to connect with whatever is going to help them grow close to God. That's what I want. If you can do that, it doesn't have to be our church. So go wherever you can. Henry saying, Henry, good to see you. Our church has our regular service, Bible study, and prayer all on social media. We should be focused, or should we be focused, or should we be seen as much as possible? Man, that's a great question. Should we be focused, or should we be seen as much as possible? This is the old debate on quality versus quantity. And I think quality versus quantity is kind of a seasonal thing. I think what you need to do is get the quality up to a level that, it's that good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good becomes better and your better best. And I think we need to be able to take, if it's good, let's get it up to better before we bring in something else. Because a lot of times when you're good and then you start trying to create multiple goods, it actually dilutes the good and then it kind of becomes poor. And so for me, and this is just practicality, what I've seen, what I've done, what I've experienced, and what I've seen other people doing, what winds up happening is when you start to bring up and ramp up the quantity that you have, a lot of times the quality will then suffer. So if you've brought your good up to a better, then I would look at, let's add something in. And even if it drops a little bit, let's try to get it back up there, and then we can add in another, and then it might drop a little bit, and let's try to get them all the way up there. And I think once you've got some multiple ones that are doing good, well, then you work at getting them all to better and all to best. I think the other aspect of it that I don't think anybody, including myself, can give you a definitive answer on is, what is God really calling you to? So like one of the things for us, and you're talking about the prayer on there, we don't and we won't put prayer on there. And that's just us personally that won't do it. Do I pray online? Yes, but I'm not going to do it in some type of like a streaming service, even if we're doing like a prayer service, because I believe, and this is just, it's my own little theological thing, so don't say that I'm saying this is the end all be all. This is my understanding and my interpretation. If you take a different understanding and interpretation on it, no problem. I'm not going to be upset about it. But for me, when it comes to prayer specifically, I think that there's more power where they are gathered together, and I believe that is more of an in-person thing, at least in my experience and my understanding. So that's what we do. When we're doing the prayer, we're trying to gather together physically, and I don't want other people just popping in. Now, if it was something like, say, in a Facebook group where it's kind of locked down and I know who's there, maybe. That might be something I'd consider. Again, that's just also going to require more work and more time for me and for others. And unless somebody was willing to jump on there. But for general prayer type stuff, now I prefer to have, kind of a small group of, solid prayer warriors and intercessors. And these are the ones that we're going to kind of come together and we're going to start praying about those things. So I think there needs to be a combo of being very focused. And I think the focus needs to come on the primary things first. What's the first thing that God has really called us to do in this time? And let's focus in on that. And once we have that done, now let's ask him, is there something else we ought to be doing? and then go from there. So I would start with the quality first and then move on to the quantity. My personal opinion. So, Dean, thought Josh was about to do a microphone giveaway. Got excited for a second. Nope. No. Not happening. At some point, maybe, but it's not going to be a Shure SM7B. It sure won't be a Shure. Because this one and that one, if y'all know, if you've looked at these things, I mean, $400 here, $100 for the arm, an extra like 20 in cables, another 100 for the FET head, a $500 Rodecaster Pro. Nope. Vaughn, people also have to understand that you can't necessarily forklift what you. Hold on, I got to read that again. The word forklift threw me off. You can't necessarily forklift what you do in person for church online. I'm guessing forego maybe, or I'm just not understanding. But in the general, looking at what you say, what you're doing in person doesn't necessarily translate to church online. That is a big challenge. Or maybe just take one to the other. Yeah, it's, to me, this is, I think there really needs to be more of a strategy for most churches and what they're doing. And similar to where a lot of the, medium, large size churches, they start doing multiple services. And one of the first things that they'll do is have like a contemporary service and then like a traditional service. And you understand when you're doing those that there is a different audience and a different demographic that's going to come to each one. I think that's what we need to be thinking about when we have our in-person service and our online service, and understanding it's a completely different audience, and then what elements of this in-person service actually translate well online, because not everything does. It doesn't. So I think that's where we kind of need to understand that. But again, that's going to be each church, each ministry really asking God, seeking him in what is it specifically that he's called us to for these and this, and as a whole, where's the overlap? Where's the cross? I think that's going to really help us to be better and more effective in what we're trying to do. So I like that. Henry, I think that's great. I think you continue to do it. And like Mike's saying, if you're already doing this, Henry, going back to the regular service, the Bible study and prayer all online, if you're already doing it and it's good, keep doing it. I wouldn't. The worst case that I would suggest is maybe talk to people and say, you could also look at your numbers and your analytics and sit there and say, okay, is this being as effective? Unless you know that God is specifically calling you to that, and then ignore the analytics. If you know God's calling you to something, you don't need to check out the analytics at all. So, Tectonic saying, howdy. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Vaughn, truth. Preaching to a live audience is quite different than preaching to an online audience. I am so used to the occasional amen and the woes, and then like the one of the wrestling terms we use, the dead pops, where you say something and all of a sudden a hush comes over the crowd. I'm used to those when I'm preaching. And when you're preaching to the lens of a camera, you don't get that. If you're live streaming to the lens of a camera, you can get some comments over here in your nice little chat window, and then that kind of helps. But that's it. So Vaughn saying, my congregation gives me some grace if I get long-winded, but I do not get that kind of love on YouTube. No, you will not get that kind of love online. And this is the other hard part about looking at analytics online. Analytics are just a measurement. It's not the measurement. And understanding the difference on the platforms, because not all views are created equally. Not all watch time is created equally. Different platforms have different audience members and different viewing habits. Different platforms have different abilities for those. There's so many different little nuances that you just got to kind of understand. There's got to be a different strategy to it, especially when you can't see who all's there. There's a lot of times in these that I don't know who's watching. I don't know how many people are watching, because there are people that are kind of, let's say lurking around in on the page or on the stream, and yet they're not hopping in the chat. So it's like you just don't know. You don't know. So that's going to be the same thing with what we're doing. John, preaching in person, it's more of a captive audience. But even when we did online only services, we tailored the message to a shorter length. Yeah. I'm there. Oh, John's got the answer. I didn't understand Vaughn. John, I get it. You pick it up with a forklift, what you're doing in person, and move it online. I like that. I mean, it makes more sense to me now. But yes, that it doesn't. You can't really do that. You just can't pick it up and move it over here and say that it works. Even though that's what the vast majority of ministries are doing. They're just trying to take it and transplant it over, trying to push it all online and think that it works. And I think, honestly, that's a lot of the analytics that we're seeing, where it's a lot lower in the views, in the retentions, in the watch time. It's because we're trying to feed it to an audience that doesn't want to be fed that way. That's not what they're used to. It's not what they like, and it's just they're not going to receive it. So I think, like you were saying here, that tailoring it to a shorter length definitely helps. I've kind of been a proponent of saying that our online sermons kind of need to have a maximum of that TED Talk, length. So we should really be aiming for 18 minutes max for our sermons. Now, I know there are a lot of pastors, when I say that, they're like, we were just being told at a lot of these conferences we needed to get it down to like 30 minutes. Now you're saying that needs to be cut in half down to 18? Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. An 18-minute monologue a lot of times is hard. It's hard to watch. And you also got to keep in mind, when you're in person, there's a lot of pauses and there's a lot of breaks and things like that. When you put it online, and you can edit it down, even if you don't have a lot of editing experience, it can be done. And if you do get that edited down into that window, it's going to be more effective to reach people. And I think it's really just the simple concept of your messages need to be as long as necessary and as short as possible. So like 18 minutes is kind of like the max that I want to reach for. If I could get my Sunday message that would normally be around that 30 to 35 minute mark in person, if I can get that down to 15 minutes, man, I'm happy. I mean, if it was less than that, I'm happy. As long as I can get the exact same content in a short, concise way that will help keep their attention so they still get all the information that I believe God wanted them to have, man, why not? Why not? I think it's good. So, a bite of brownie saying he's not lurking. He's not lurking. Just more like listening. That's all right. That works too. I'm kind of like my mother that way. So 18 minutes. It was hard enough to get it down to 30. 30 in person is rough. And I'm telling you from experience, having done a lot of these vlog style sermons, that if I take my 30-minute message that I'm preaching in person and I just record that exact same message using the exact same notes and all of the same points directly to a camera, it is easy to edit that down to 18 minutes without cutting out every single and pause. I'm just talking, I have every thought, just give a thought, make a cut. Next thought, make a cut. Next thought, make a cut. And when I was doing that, 18 minutes is easy. Like, it really wasn't hard. So that was kind of telling me that my 30-minute messages only had about 18 minutes worth of content in it. Now, part of that is in person. I'm wanting people to open up their Bibles. I'm wanting them to turn in their pages. We're, turning and looking up on the screen at these other scriptures that I'm pulling up. And sometimes I'm just waiting, letting that kind of like sticky statement or that powerful point that just came across, I'm waiting for it to land and to hit them. Online, I'm not waiting for it to land. I'm on to the next thing. If they need to take a minute, well, they can rewind really easy. So that's kind of where I'm thinking. Now, if it was just an audio only, like podcast and stuff, that's completely different. Those, you just look at podcasts. You got some of them that are 5 minutes long and some of them that are 2 hours long. There's an audience for all of those. Most YouTube stuff, most online video, it's not. You've got like a short form, a medium form, and then your long form. And that's where I think that really most of our sermons, most of our Sunday messages should kind of be in that medium length with an 18-minute max. Just my personal thoughts. I figure if people can sit through a TED Talk, and that's kind of the typical monologue that this younger generation is used to, it's a good aim for us. So there's my thoughts. Yeah, and he says that makes sense. There is fluff in person, and there is, and it's just cutting out some of that fluff and stuff that doesn't translate online. it doesn't. Yep, you know what I'm talking about. John saying, I actually found our congregation goes for the audio only at the full length more than the short online. Yeah, and again, this is congregation specific type of a deal. And I don't think a lot of these strategies should be an either or. Kind of like what Henry was talking about. Should we do this, this, and this? I think part of the good, better, best is, if we just put on our online sermon, if we just streamed what we're doing Sunday morning online, that's good. It's good. What's better is recording a separate video message just for them. And then I think what's even better than that, and maybe kind of the best platform, is let's do in person, let's do an online video and an online audio. And the online audio, you can go a lot longer with that. And then the online video, it needs to be a lot shorter. So I think there's definitely a lot of elements to play with. But when you get into being in small church ministry, you're limited on kind of the approach and how much you can actually do because it requires more work and you often don't have the volunteers and the extra resources to be able to do that. So that's where it's identifying what's the first thing that we need to be focusing on. And then what can we do from there? I think the only bad approach is not doing anything at all. I think a not good approach is saying we did something and then just leaving it there. Because again, it's not like our life in Christ where we're supposed to grow. So anyway, there's kind of my thoughts. So let's see. In person, you put a lot of pause in there, and people think or react often. Yeah, and that's that extra 12 minutes that I'm typically running with. It's just if I can get it down between that. Really, it's kind of averaging when I was doing the online 16 to 18 was kind of that sweet spot. So about half of the stuff was pretty much fluff. So there you go. And Mike, yeah, it's been a while since I did an 18-minute sermon. Since I did an 18-minute sermon, man, you haven't been checking me out on some of the YouTube shorts and the TikTok and the Instagram reels. I've been doing some 11-second sermons, apparently. Which honestly, hey, for anybody, this is just a little bonus. Any minister that wants an exercise in brevity and shortening up your points and your messages, TikTok, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, you're kind of forced to sit there, and especially if you're looking at a scripture and you're like, how do I make a point on this in 15 seconds? It's possible. I think what I've been doing online over the last month and a half has been proof of concept. It is possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. So, and what? Churches lack volunteers. They do. John, I'm trying to figure out how to run a camera from the pulpit. That's easy. You get the Sony a6600, and before you head up to the pulpit, you hit record, and then you go up. And you don't have to worry about it shutting off. It runs. It just does its thing. Doesn't run out of battery either. So I think I've had like a 2-hour long Sunday service that was recorded. It wasn't that long. I mean, the service was only like 35 minutes, 40 with, prayer requests afterwards. But then we had all that chatting afterwards that always happens in in-person church, and I forgot to shut off the camera. And it went like 2 hours in 4K, and the battery was good. So there you go. And yes, my message for the moment vlog is only 5 to 8 minutes. Yeah, I mean, we can get those things down. I think it's just kind of understanding the different points. And I think a lot of times, even with like a Sunday message, one of the big things is looking at, this is the message God's given us. What's the main point, and how can I do this on maybe some different platforms? How could I give this message that God gave me in person? How can I give it online? And then you take that, okay, how can I do that into different platforms, different social sites as well. So let's see. My wife told me the other day that I had to make my point 10 minutes, or you had made your point 10 minutes before you realized you made your point. It can happen. It can happen. All right, guys. Well, hey, this has been a blast. This has been fun. Last little plug for you guys. If you want some more of that tips, some tricks, some tools, some of the behind the scenes and early access stuff, I do have that membership site over at buymeacoffee.com/Joshua Verwers, where I'm trying to just bring a little bit of extra value and some insight to some of the stuff that I'm doing here online and some of the how-tos. So some of it is going to be more technical related, and some of it is just kind of like peeling back the curtain of what I'm using. Like last week I had mentioned, maybe I'll just throw on that Trello board that I use for video creation, and it's on there. The monthly members have access to that, which, by the way, for those monthly members that want to take a look at it, you could even see that this video that was on there, those were the notes that I was reading from, just some of the thoughts that I put in there. So I just pulled up my Trello app over here while I was streaming and just kind of looking through and glancing, and then we have this live stream. So there you have it. That's all I got. Love you guys. Until next week on the Digital Ministry Show, stay blessed.